everybody? It's your boy Pitts, Pitt Sports Zone, Bowie TV, coming to you live. Listen, it's going down all things HBCUs. And who else better to start it off with them Bowie State Bulldogs? We coming to you, Bowie State Bulldogs, total access. We got the Morgan State Bears. Listen, all HBCUs information, all HBCU news, sporting events, updates. You get it live here with Pitt Sports Zone, Bowie TV, Comcast Channel 77. Verizon Channel 11 is going down. Don't you miss a beat.
Listen, it's only the beginning because it's early still.
And it's
we're gonna be here all day.
All day.
What's going on, everybody? How you doing? I'm your host, Pitts, from Pitts and Push Sports Talk Radio, Pitt Sports Zone, Bowie TV, coming to you live yet again with the familiar face and a returning guest, and my guy, Coach Hue Jackson, Georgia State University Offensive Coordinator. How you doing today, Coach?
I'm doing great. It's always a pleasure to be here. It's always great to be around you, Pitts. You do a great job. Thank you.
I appreciate you, man. Sydney?
Well, I am so excited to welcome an incredibly inspiring guest to the show tonight. Coach Hue Jackson is a respected leader in the world of football with decades of coaching experience in both the NFL and college football. From serving as a head coach for the Cleveland Browns and the Oakland Raiders to now leading the program at Grambling State University, Coach Jackson has built a legacy rooted in passion, perseverance, and purpose. Beyond the game, he's dedicated to mentoring young athletes and using his platform to make a real difference on and off the field. It is truly an honor to have him join us today. Coach Jackson, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thank you for having me, and what an unbelievable introduction.
Yes.
Coach, last year you ended up at Georgia State University as the assistant general manager. Just kind of walk us through how that, came about.
Well, I had a friend who knew Coach Del McGee. It was his first year at Georgia State. He came from the University of Georgia, a lot of winning, national championships, been around a lot of great football players, helped mentor a lot of great football players, and that matriculated into the National Football League. So I knew a little bit about him, but I didn't know him personally. He introduced me to him. We hit it off. He had another staff member here by the name of Jim Chaney, who was the office coordinator a year ago, who was a good friend of mine. We worked together at Cal State Fullerton. So it was a really easy transition for me just to kind of get my feet wet that way, watch the team, see where, we could improve in those particular areas. And Jim was going to step away after the season. And Coach asked me, did I want to go take this on? And absolutely, I wanted to. So it's a very unbelievable area. It's Atlanta. As you know, that's the hub, in my opinion, of college football and football in general. And then to be able to work for a guy like Del McGee, who, like I said, has been at so many stops. I mean, guy coached high school football, won there. He's coached college football at Georgia, won there. Was the head coach at Georgia Southern as an intern, won there. Every place he's been, he's won because he has a plan and a process. And so I wanted to be a part of it and help him attain his goals and winning.
Absolutely. This position that you walked into at first with Georgia State University was different. You had a myriad of different roles at different universities, NFL clubs, et cetera. This time, though, go around, you were the assistant manager. Can you talk about the difference in roles and responsibilities that particular role was different from your usual roles that you first initially walk into when you're at a university campus or NFL ball club?
Absolutely, way different because Joe Wyndon he is the general manager, and so he sets the climate with the head coach as far as who they're drafting, what they want to draft. I mean, as far as recruiting, I should say, who they want to recruit, what they want to recruit, what that process is going to be, what that looks like. I was blown away, at what they do because I've never seen more young men come on a college campus than I had in my life. I mean, they come from all over, not just Atlanta, from Florida, from Tennessee, from Louisiana. I mean, because they're taking trips to go see Georgia Tech. He was able to get those buses to be diverted and come by Georgia State University. I mean, he is a master recruiter. He has a following of high school coaches who really respect him because he coached high school football. and to watch so many student athletes come on campus, height, weight, know who they are, really try to take those guys and have them see a part of our campus and what we're all about in a real short period of time. And then there's a 7-on-7 tournament that goes on, and that starts at probably about 9 in the morning and ends at 6 p.m. And there is no break in between. So you're evaluating all these players at a high level right here on your campus without you even having to take a step away from the campus. There's nothing like that. I mean, it's a first class run organization, and for me to see that, that was big time. And I've been a part of it now, and it's been awesome.
Absolutely. Sydney?
Well, Coach Jackson, I know that you have the Hue Jackson Foundation, and I
Mhm.
wanted to know more. What inspired you to launch the Hue Jackson Foundation?
Well, the thing with human trafficking, that's a huge problem in this world. When people get exploited for things that we know they shouldn't be, I think some people got to take a stand. And so back in 2016, we formed a foundation to combat human trafficking. There was the Harbor Light District that was there, the Salvation Army. We were able to build a residence to house victims of human trafficking. If that is still rolling like it was back then, I don't know that. But we did our part. When I was there in Cleveland, and the first year I left, we kept it pushing and going. But since then, I have not been as active as I was when I was there. But I do keep my eye on it, and it's still an issue. I just seen some kids that were found, I think a week and a half ago. Over 50 something kids that had been trafficked had been found. And so that's what the end result that you want, because there's so much of that's going on in this world.
Yeah, most
Absolutely.
definitely,
That's
most definitely.
amazing.
Joey?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have a lot of questions, but first off, I mean, you've been a running back coach, a wide receiver coach, a quarterback coach, and you've been to like a huge amount of programs. I'll be here all day listing the amount of programs you've coached for. But what do you like to take from every organization you've been a part of and bring to your current organization now?
I think what I first like to do is just leave a piece of myself with where I was. That when I leave, people go, wow, we might be missing this. I
Mhm.
like to leave my part there. And then when I come, I like to bring something to add value, obviously, to the staff, add value to the players and their lives, and trying to help them be the best they can be. Um, when I know this role for me when I first this spring was different for me because there's an existing offense. So
Right.
that's me learning, about what they do, how they do it, and seeing how I can improve it. And so that's a different title to wear, because it's not my verbiage. You have to learn these things at a high level. So that's been fun, but also to add my twist to things has been very good, And again, at the end of the day, we all know it's about recruiting. You got good players, you're going to be a good coach. So
Yeah, for sure.
it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Coach, when you talk about the verbiage, and I want to kind of pivot a little bit to your assistant manager roles.
Hmm.
Um, as the assistant manager, how hands-on were you when it came to game day operations, or did you intricate yourself into the offensive system and just to see and know and hear? What was that like for you, not being hands-on, but more so being in the back and observing it all?
It was really eye opening for me because I got to be a part really of game management. What coach really wanted me to tackle along within that role was game management for him on game day. When to go for two, when not to go for two, when to take timeouts, when not to take timeouts. So I had there's a book that we carry that we use, and I was able to give him that information, earlier than what maybe he would have gotten it if he didn't have a person doing that. So I thought that was a comfort for him. I thought to have a set of eyes of somebody who's seen a lot of football in a lot of different arenas to be able to say, hey, this could happen here, helps. That helps you tremendously. So the role of helping with recruiting, making decisions about what players, what characteristics we're looking for was awesome. But the greatest role I thought was being able to help manage the game for the head coach because I think that gave him a comfort level.
Absolutely.
Say it.
Well, looking back on your career, are there are there particular seasons, games, or players that really stand out to you as like defining moments in your career?
Oh wow, there's been so many. I wouldn't have enough time to really discuss them all. There's so many players that I've been involved with, so many young men who have touched my life, and hopefully I've touched theirs, whether it's been in college or the NFL. I mean, I've recruited two Heisman Trophy winners. I've been named Coach of the Year in the National Football League. I've been a head coach in college. I've been a two-time head coach in NFL. I've coached all pros. I've coached guys that played in Pro Bowls, guys that played in Super Bowls. It's just so many, But the biggest thing most proud of is that I'm still in contact with a lot of those guys today. Those guys are involved in my life, and I'm involved in their life on a regular basis. And to me, that's what it's really all about at the end of the day. It's the relationships you form with these student athletes and these pros that are kind of unbreakable, because I think they know they can trust me. They know that I come from a good place. I'm going to keep it real with them. Sometimes I tell them things they don't want to hear, and you got to be able to do that. So, but when you have somebody like that in your life who's a mentor, that person is really treasured in your life. And so I think I've made an impact that way.
Before we get to Joey's question, Coach, we had a question from one of our viewers. Joanne Chester asked, "Do your foundation take donations?"
No, it did, no doubt. But where we are today, I would have to go back and talk to my executive assistant, Kimberly Deemer, and find out exactly where we are with that. And I really, really thank you for someone even considering that. But there's so many places that you can donate money to within that area that it is unbelievable. I'm sure right there in the city that they're in, that there's a place where you can really make an impact for people who are being abused that way.
Absolutely, Joey.
All right, so I'm extremely interested in picking your brain like about the game of football because you have extensive coaching. I know you played quarterback back in the day, but you've been a quarterback coach for Tennessee State, USC, as well as the Ravens.
Mhm.
But what kind of separates a great quarterback from a good quarterback? And this is a loaded question. What is the favorite quarterback you've coached? It doesn't necessarily have to be the best, but your favorite.
Well, what separates the great ones is the work ethic. And they come early, they stay late. They are an extended coach on the field. They have the passion and desire to be different at a high level. In pressure moments, they make pressure plays. And so everybody can't do that, and that's what separates the great ones from the guys who are, good, and they have this burning desire to be the best, and it shows in everything that they do. I've coached some really good ones in my career, from helping draft Joe Flacco and watching his career still go to, when I think of Jason Campbell and what he did when he came to the Raiders for us, but he got hurt. When I think of Andy Dalton in the year that I thought we were about to have, we started out 8-0 and he got hurt, where I thought we were on our way to the Super Bowl. So many of those guys have been real factors in my life that way, um, playing the game. And I think what I try to do is make the game fun for them, give them an opportunity to showcase their talent and ability. But there's so many guys. I mean, I never got a chance to coach Michael Vick in a game, but's been around him. But he was in practice, he was just phenomenal. And so I've been around so many guys that way, and they were very talented athletes. I don't know that I have a best one, because I've been around so many and
Yeah,
coached so many of them, that at the end of the day, everybody said was who won for you, but that's not what makes it special for me. What
Yeah,
makes it special for me is the connection, right? It's the connection, and having that player feel like he really got you and you got him, and you put him in position to have success. And so those guys I named, those were the guys that did it for me, at a high level. So, but I'm sure there's some people I didn't name, but it's not because I didn't. It's because maybe I just didn't. It didn't come to my mind because there's still so many other guys that
right.
had
right.
a huge impact that way for me.
Coach so
Correct.
many, so it would be
Hmm.
hard to just pick out a select.
Absolutely.
While we're on the quarterbacks, not only are you the offensive coordinator for Georgia State this year, you're also the quarterbacks coach. How important or how much how often, or do you get those type of questions from the quarterbacks when you're coaching them from a collegiate level in regards to the relationships and the quarterbacks that you've coached at the pro level?
Oh yeah, they so it's really interesting because the college game is coming becoming a pro game. These guys are getting paid for play. And so it's another opportunity to teach for me because up there that's really what it's all about. If you can't, I ask people all the time, what is the number one thing a quarterback must do to be a quarterback? And it's very simple, but yet it's really hard for people to figure out. And if
Mhm.
I asked you that question, what would you think it is?
If you was to ask me what's the hardest,
Well, no, what is the number one thing a quarterback must be able to do?
read defenses.
And see, that's interesting. Anybody else? Anybody else want to take a shot at that?
I would say lead. Quarterback has to
Okay.
be a
You
leader.
I was
say
going
he
to say
said
that to lead.
you guys said lead. So think about it this way. If you can't complete the football, you can't play
Mm,
quarterback.
mm.
Think about that.
Yeah.
So
That's
if
a
you
nice
can't,
quote.
yeah, if you can't complete the ball, you can't play quarterback. So that's the number one thing a quarterback must do, and his teammates will revere him for that first and foremost. He might not be the greatest leader, but if he can complete the ball, and if he can complete the ball in pressure moments, they're gonna love him for it.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
that's interesting. Now we can build on the leadership. We
Yes.
can build on the ability to read defenses and those things. But if you can't complete the ball, there's guys that I kind of get amazed. Guys come out of college completing 52, 53% of their passes going to National Football League. And you think he's going to complete 60? That's not going to happen.
Right.
It's not the way it works. And
Yeah.
so it just, that's when you just break it down to the bare minimum, what must you do? You better be able to complete the ball. You can't play. It's just that simple. And so when guys realize that, they really start to fine tune that area of pinpoint passing.
Mm.
And so then they take that next step. There's levels to this everywhere. But boy, the guys who can complete the ball in the National Football League are normally the best players.
Yeah.
And for our viewers, and I'll jump to Sydney. For our viewers, when you talk about completing the football, for those who aren't that delved into football analogy and terminology, are you referring to accuracy, or are you referring to? Can you delve into it a little bit more?
Yeah, I'm referring to accuracy. Guy that can complete the ball, whether it's short, medium, or long. A
Mm.
guy that can throw the ball in spaces and that gives his receiver a chance to make plays. Batman has to have Robin. There's a lot of these Batmans that play quarterback that don't have very good receivers, right? But there are some that have some really good receivers that make them look really good too.
Absolutely.
And so that's why building an organization, how do you build it, is so important because everybody doesn't have an all-pro quarterback. Everybody doesn't have an all-pro receiver. So what are you gonna take and what are you gonna make? What do you want your offensive team to look like? And I think that's so important. But boy, we all would like quarterbacks that complete the ball. Period. And we love that guy.
Makes a hell of a long day for your defense if you don't.
Yes, it does.
Sydney.
Well, since you're giving such great advice, what advice would you give to young coaches and athletes trying to break into the industry, especially those who might not see a lot of representation of people that look like them in leadership roles?
Well, it is tough. I'm not going to run from that. It's hard. I don't. I quit following how many years it's been in the National Football League. I think it's up 110 years now or something like that. I know when I was in the league, there was only 36 or 38 minority head coaches in the history
Mm.
of the league. I know we're heading into the second year that there's not a minority offensive play caller in the National Football League, and that's mind blowing to me. When there's been so many men who have come before me, after me, who I think have the skill to be able to do that, and that's where this is 2025, and that's going on today, and we're in year two of it.
Mhm.
So how does that change? And I don't know that it does. And I'm not running from that, but I just would say, hey, look, go be the best you can be. You got to go be around great people, great teachers, people who are going to mentor you, people that are going to pour into you and give you an opportunity to learn at a high level. And then go soak up that knowledge and don't be afraid to take that challenge. I think right now, I've said this before, and I've said this in front of many of panels and other people. I think minority coaches are kind of afraid a little
Mhm.
bit because if I do become that coordinator, if I do get fired, where do I go? What is my next role? So I'm the receiver coach. I'm making $600,000, which is a great life. Don't get me wrong, but I got a chance to go be a coordinator and make maybe $2 million a year. And but when I'm done, and let's say I get fired after the first year, where do I go? What do I do? That money is not why we do it. It's not about the money.
Yeah.
It's about being able to compete and be considered one of the best in the world at what you do. And
Yeah.
so, and people forget that because we don't get to start over again. You don't normally get let go and you go back and become, the quarterback coach or the lead play caller or those type of things. You go back and you got to start over sometimes. And so that's hard. And
And And before Joey jumped in, Coach, we talked about this extensively, right?
mhm,
But we talked about it at that point from the head coaching perspective. And
mhm,
we were talking about, I remember the episode when we were talking NFL at that time. We
mhm,
used Sean and Titus in the game. And we talked about, Eric Bieniemy.
mhm,
And we talked about the fact that, his opportunities of being able to move into that head coaching spot was always marred by some narrative that no one could confirm, but he never got the job, even though his qualifications said he was qualified to have that job. Where we are now, we have coaches, in my opinion, who don't have the qualification resume that, such as you or Pep Hamilton or Eric Bieniemy, but they're being thrust into these head coaching positions and they're given opportunities to fail. Whereas minority coaches, it almost seems as if you fail after 1 year, it's all done for you.
Oh yeah, no, that's the way it looks, and maybe that's the way it feels. It's unfortunate because I think there's men of color who deserve more opportunities than what they've gotten. There's no question about that. But we live in a real world, right? And real things happen every day, and so you gotta. I hate to say it, you gotta roll with it, but you can't accept it, but you also have to deal with it, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. And I say accept it because it's what's really happening in a profession that you love, that you're passionate about, and you want to continue to move forward. And so you have to go take some of these other opportunities to give yourself a chance. And sometimes those don't work out for all different type of reasons. And so it's always this wheel that you're on, but you got to balance it with who you are. Who are you? Who do you want to be? What are you going to be willing to accept and not accept? And what do you really want? What is your why for doing all this? And so when it's all said and done, you got to answer those questions for yourself.
Sydney, that word comes up again that Steve Weiss, the NFL Network analyst,
Find your
spoke
way.
on last week. Not enough people are focused on the why.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
JC,
Well, my question is, what would you say is the most challenging part of being an offensive coordinator, and what is your favorite part? What do you enjoy? What do you get back after you look back at your work and see the results? Where do you sit back with yourself and you say, "I'm glad I did this"?
Well, the most challenging part of being office coordinator is putting men in situations to have success. Your job is to showcase the talents and abilities that you're giving on game day because they change, right? Somebody gets injured, in the National Football League and college, that can happen too. Or all of a sudden the guy's suspended because he didn't go to class, whatever all those things are. You have to be ready to adapt and adjust because you got to have one more point than the other team. When it's all said and done, that's your job. Make sure you have one more point than the other team. Everybody's happy. But being able to take talented players, get them to pull on the same heartstring. Understand there's one football. There's a lot of guys that maybe need to touch it, and being able to get those guys the touches that they deserve so that they can put your team in position to win is special to me. And I think it takes a special combination of a guy that leads that room because that guy has to be very disciplined, he has to
Yep.
be very organized, he has to be very motivating, and he has to have a forethought about what it's going to look like when it's all said and done. And so I've walked away from many times wishing things I could have done different, even after wins,
Yeah.
and definitely after losses. And people don't understand the lonely nights that some coaches have that are in those positions, because you might have won a loss based on a call you did or didn't make,
Yeah.
and so you got to live with that, and you got to erase that as fast as you can and get back to the next, and some guys can handle that and some guys can't.
Yeah, it's a lot to bear. I agree that it's very hard, and I
Hmm.
commend you for what you do, because the game,
Thank
like
you.
you said, can ultimately come down to a decision that you do or don't make, and you have to
Hmm.
live with that. You have to stay strong with what you have in your head and stick by it.
Hmm.
It's kind of like when you have a safety on the field who is supposed to be in a cover two coverage, and I mean cover three, and he's in a cover two, and he gets beat over the top, right?
Oh
And
yeah,
you got
I,
to,
I'm
you
looking
got
for that guy pitch every week.
you looking for the safety that's
Oh
misdiagnosed
yeah,
in
oh
the
yeah.
play. But it's similar because the saying is, in the sports world is, once if you mess up or if you make an error, you have to really erase it and get back on, and not allow that to be a domino effect for the rest of the game.
Hmm.
Because there are some players that can make a mistake, such as give up a touchdown, bounce right back, get a pick, right?
Hmm.
But then there's others where it begins to be a domino effect, and
Oh
the
yeah.
mental and the focus, the discipline starts to break down.
There's coaches that are the same way. We're human. And
Yeah.
that's the thing that I think people forget. You're still dealing with the human side
Yeah,
of people don't like to do bad, right? People are not built just to go and not win or have something not come up right, right?
yeah,
And it's the people who know how to deal with those things in real time, fast enough to wipe that away and move on to the next, and keep it moving, are the people who normally are very successful. The people who don't, because they get stuck,
Mm.
and if you get stuck for a quarter of calling plays and you start calling bad plays for a quarter, everybody can see it, right? And so you got to deal with that, And so I just think there's a lot of people that say they want to do these jobs, but there's a lot of people that once they get it, they go, "What did I get myself into?" Because they start to understand the pressure and the stress that comes with it, and some people can't handle that.
Yeah.
look,
I also try to say, like, it's easy to look back at the game after it's finished and saying, "Oh, I could have did this," or "You could have did
Hmm.
this," after the finished result, because it's
Yeah.
not the same at all. In the heat of the moment, you got to make a decision and you got to stick
You
with it.
got to pull the trigger, and a
And
lot of people can pull the trigger.
and that kind of brings me to my next question. Can you talk about a moment when where you had to make a really tough call as a coach, and how did you handle that pressure?
I handled it well until he fumbled the ball. You know, I knew it was the right call. I thought it was going to seal the game for us, and handed the young man the ball in a crucial situation, and really believe we did everything you were supposed to do. Remind them, tell them what to do, tell them make sure you keep two hands on the ball. Just everything you can think of was said before this play was ran, and so I can still see it, and I will see it for the rest of my life. The ball being handed off and a guy running downhill and a hole opens,
mm,
and I go no, but he's saying yes, and he keeps going and he gets stood up and the ball gets ripped out,
mm.
Mm.
and we really lose the game, right? I mean, we're about to go make history. We're about to go do something that hadn't been done. I'm not going to talk about the team; it doesn't matter. But it bled into to me the rest of the time that these people were in that city,
Yeah,
because they were on the brink of doing something great, and it didn't happen. And you can go back and slice it, dice it, do all you want, but at the end of the day, that player, he saw a chance to be the hero.
Mm.
And instead of saying, "Wait a minute, I'm gonna do what I've been asked to do," and that's what half this stuff is. You got to trust. There's a trust there when I hand you the ball that you're gonna do the right thing, and that time he didn't. So it happens.
Yeah.
absolutely. JC.
Last season, you guys were kind of figuring things out. You had a close game against UConn, ended in a one-score game, and one could
Hmm.
argue that you guys ran out of time rather than lost. Maybe if the first quarter went a little bit differently, but next season you guys have a opener against Ole Miss at their crib. What are you looking forward to specifically for that game as well as the rest of the season?
Man, let's go. They got a great football team. Love their head coach. I know them. They got a great defensive coordinator. They're gonna have great players every time they step on the field. And there's no question about that. We're gonna play down there at Ole Miss, and it'll be at night, and the crowd will be rocking. But the Panthers are gonna show up. This is the fun part about all this stuff. You get a chance to go out and showcase who you are and what you do. And these are the moments. These are the champion moments. These are the moments you get a chance to do something special. So our players will be chomping at the bit ourselves, and we feel good about who we are, and we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm gonna be tuned in for that game for sure.
Hmm.
Leading into this season, going from last year to this year. Last year, you guys had, roughly 1,600 yards rushing, over 3,000 yards passing. What is the offensive structure that you're looking to bring in to kind of mix up, to give a little bit more splash in the running play, but also keep that balance in the passing game?
Whatever it takes to win. It's very simple. It's not about systems, it's about players. People, there's not a system I haven't been in. It's not a system I haven't created. So
Yeah,
it's not about systems for me. The style of system is what everybody knows. That it's through the head coach. But at the end of the day, I'm in charge of making sure we score enough points. So the players that can score the football, I have to make sure it's in their hands. And if I can do that at a high level, then we'll be very, very successful. And those numbers have a chance to be even better than what they were a year ago. So that's the challenge. In this day and age, you get all these new players. This is not like they've been in the system from year to year, right? It's a whole new team. So
yeah,
how fast can you get these players acclimated to what you're trying to do? And I think our guys are working extremely hard. But at the same time, you never know until you play. So I'm looking forward to it, and I think it's going to be fun.
absolutely. Sid?
How do you balance discipline and compassion when managing a team of young men under intense pressure?
And so managing young men under intense pressure starts with putting them in that pressure before they ever get to the game, right? So it's what's created in practice every day. I mean, we believe in a very high structured pressure packed practice that puts football players in a lot of different situations because that's what football is. It's being in a lot of different situations and understanding how to handle them, from play in to play out. And so I think our head coach does a great job of creating that environment. I think our players get it and understand it. And then they have to be able to take that to the game. And if they do, then those moments when they come, they're not as surprised by them. And so
Right.
they're not as pressure packed. It's just like being in practice and having these things happen. And if we can do that, you have a chance to be good.
Yeah.
Absolutely. JC?
I just wanted you to talk about your passion for the sport, where it comes from, and how does it bring you to do your job to the best of your ability every day.
Football's been a part of my life since I was wee little, right? Played Pop Warner football. And it's always been something I love. It's a chance to um, it's done a lot for me. It taught me discipline at a young age, and it gave me a lot of rewards in life. It helped me build a career, and it's an unbelievable game. Now it's a tough game. It's a
Yeah,
physical game. It's hard driving. It's gritty. It can get grimy at times, but at the same time, it's still a fun sport played by young men who make a lot of money in the pro game, and now they're making that money in the college game for something that you love to do. I don't think there's anything like it in my
yeah,
mind,
Not at all.
but at the same time, and the fans love it, and you guys see it from all your different angles, but the detail, the work that goes in every day, the getting up at 5 a.m. to be to work for planning, to getting home at 10:30, 11 o'clock and turn around and doing that again, year in and year out. People don't understand the sacrifice that a lot of people make, to do this, and the sacrifice these players make on their bodies playing this game.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot that go into this, and not everybody can do it. Being very honest, whether it's coaching or playing, it's hard, and but at the same time, it's very rewarding.
Absolutely. Extremely rewarding.
Hmm.
When when we talk challenges, right, Coach? This
Hmm.
year, NCAA ruled that universities can now start paying their student athletes. Does that does that level kind of, not necessarily to a lot of bigger schools, but does that give you enough leverage and level to like be able to keep some of the guys in house, because the transfer portal and the NIL deals from bigger schools at that time, because the boosters and everyone that was supporting the programs were able to pool a lot of players from different universities and institutions. Do you see
It,
the NCAA ruling now that universities can pay their players as a bonus to help keep some of that talent?
Pitts, I think it does. It helps, but it also hurts, right? So I said that for this reason because it's not a level playing field. We're not going to pay our guys the same amount of money that Georgia Tech's paying their guys, or that the University of Georgia is paying their guys. You don't have that kind of budget, right? So the players, you would hope a player goes to a school because of people,
Yeah,
right? The 45-pound plate that said Georgia State is the same 45-pound plate that said Georgia. You know, is who coaching this guy, right? And who's going to get the most out of the student athlete? Well, if I'm going to chase the money, then I'm going to make a decision for a whole bunch of different reasons. But if I want to be developed, if I want to get better, yeah, I might make a little less money, but boy, my goal is to play in the National Football League, and the
absolutely.
environment is right for you to keep matriculating, getting better, because the practice plans and the opportunities are greater at this school. Kids got to really look at that. But I do get, when you can make unbelievable money and change your family's life, I can't look at a kid and tell him not to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, because it might be the only chance he get to ever do that.
Absolutely.
So it's really it's a good problem to have a little bit, but at the same time, for coaches, it's almost like you're coaching another team every year, because if your players play well, the bigger school's going to say, I want him, and they're going to go pay him. They're going to go poach this player. And
Right.
you have to be prepared to say, okay, he's got to go, and you got to go find the next one, so it's just part of it. But at the same time, I'm thankful that they've done what they've done. I've always said, when it first started, I wish it had a cap on it. I did, because
Yeah.
I thought that would make things better.
Right.
How much money does, look, I mean, we got players that make more than coaches, and that's just, and I've never been around that in my career, and I'm okay with it, but I'm just saying they do. And
Yeah.
so that's what's really happening. And I know that happens in the National Football League too. So it's everywhere now. And I think it's beginning to be, okay, this is what this is. It's pay for play. And that's what the school's able to do. And how big can your budget be? And who's going to give the money? Who's going to add to it? Because you have paying for the NIL piece, right, within the conferences. But now you also still have these collectives that are out there that are able to increase,
Yes.
money for the student athletes as well.
Absolutely. Said.
Looking back on your career, have you ever coached a player who taught you something about the game or about leadership? And can you tell us about that specific player?
Yes, he was TJ Hushmanzada.
Wide
So
receiver from the ops.
yeah, coaching TJ probably was an eye opener for me, because I was fiery. I was on him. I was, man, look at here. We made no mistakes. And that's what all great young coaches do, right? I'll never forget. I forget who we're playing, and TJ made a mistake, and he knew it. And I wanted to jump him so bad. And I never get him coming off the field. And he just looked at me and he said, Coach, not right now. And I go, and I took that personal. Like, what are you telling me not right now? I'm no, 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 no. And he said, Coach, not right now. And I never forget, I turned and walked away. And I came back over to where he was, one to make sure he was okay, because the moment was done. And he said, Coach, I'm being very honest with you. When you're trying to talk to me, I cannot even hear you.
Mhm.
Mm,
I see red.
mm.
I don't see you. I can't hear you. I can't do anything. Let me sit down. Let me drink some water. Let me recompose myself. And coach, you can jump me, coach me, push me, do whatever you want. That was some of the greatest advice I've
Wow.
ever had, because I see a lot of young players are the same way, because we all were raised differently,
Yep.
Mhm.
right? And so, how do I get the best out of this player is the most important part of my job. Period.
Absolutely.
I don't care if it's the National Football League. I don't care if it's college football. I don't care if it's high school or Pop Warner.
Yes.
So I have to learn how to connect with each and every one of these players that I'm in charge of pushing and prodding and getting them to where they want to go. Some guys can handle it, some guys can't. Some
Yeah.
guys need that quick, man, give me that jolt right now. I got you, coach. Some guys ain't not going to hear you, feel you, see you. And he taught me that in real time.
Mm. And you know what? Speaking on TJ Hushmanzada, even though he played for the Ops down there in Cincinnati, but I will say this, Coach. Aside from Georgia State, I think TJ Hushmanzada was the most underrated wide receiver
Oh, yeah.
at that time because a lot of the times, me being a Pittsburgh fan, being biased, everything that Hines Ward was doing, TJ Hushmanzada was doing already,
Mhm.
right? And he just didn't get that credit for him. He was gritty, he was tough. He can take a slant to the house if needed to. He can
Mhm.
get that tough first down if you needed to. He
Mhm.
can like he had that composure even though like in the trenches where when there's banter going back and forth, he'll give you banter, but then he'll deliver
Oh,
as
yeah.
well. I,
Oh, yeah.
I, I
No.
like that about him, even though he played for
And
the Ops.
and he's also an unbelievable husband and an unbelievable father. He's one of the best I've ever been around. And obviously I've coached Chad and a lot of these guys. But another guy along those lines was Marvin Jones. People is
Hmm.
of AJ Green.
Yeah.
And that was Batman and Robin. People don't get, but both of those guys, they were similar. I'm talking about TJ and Marvin Jones because they believed they were the best. You couldn't tell them that they wasn't better than those other guys. Not that they didn't disrespect them or anything like that, but that's the fire that burned in them. That's
Yeah.
what made them who they are. And people forget that. That's when
Right.
you're drafted later, when you're not seen as the star, but you have that ability and you want to be seen that way. Man, I've coached some guys that are just like that. They wanted to show that you know what, I can do it just like they can. If they can't play, give it to me, coach. I'll take it. And that's just what it was.
Man, JC, I will let you have the last question for
All
Coach to take us out.
right. I appreciate it. I'm glad you mentioned the how TJ kind of responded to your criticism because I feel like that's another key part of coaching is how your kids respond to criticism because
Hmm.
not every child is gonna react to being yelled at. Yelling at one player might get him to snap in it, like, okay, now I got to do this because coach is mad. Now I got, but another player could cause him to shut down. So I'm just glad you said that because that happens more often than not.
Oh my
Everybody,
gosh, every day.
yeah,
you know I'm talking about every day in the work
yeah,
world
not
as
even at
well,
football, at work,
right?
school, it,
Yes.
it doesn't it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
So we also touched up on NIL, and I know that you're doing amazing stuff off the field as well. So I know you're a good person, but can you just talk to me about how much those connections with your players mean with the transfer portal and everything going on in the world too?
It's everything. If you can't have a connection with your players, if you're not connected to them, they're probably not going to play very well. I mean, people laugh. Like, I mean, I can go and laugh with our guys because I can sing the same music they sing.
Hmm.
I can go turn on my R&B and my rap, and I can get down too just like they can.
Coach
And
be
they're
getting
surprised
turned.
by that. Some of them they like, Coach, we thought you were old school. Oh no, Coach can't be old school. Coach these young school players.
Okay.
It don't work like that. I'm still hip. I wear my Louis Vuitton too. Come on now. So it is what it is, and so you got to understand the market that you're in and who you're dealing with. Because at the end of the day, like I said earlier, my job is to get the best out of them. And
Yeah.
how do I pull that out of them? I have to be able to connect with them. But if I don't, look like them, not that I have to act like them, but if I can't, talk to them about today's things that are really going on in life and deal with today's challenges, all I talk about is back in 1985, this is what was going on. That's
May
not
not
going to
be
work. No, that ain't. Look, man, get that guy out of here. He can't help us, and that's what it is. And so you have to have that ability to do that. And I think leaders are of the group, but they're above the group, right? I mean, you
Mhm.
know how to be in that moment with them, but there's a time and a place where you gotta say, this is the way, this is how we're going, this is where we're going, and you get it done, and that's what this is.
Well, Coach, hey, listen, as always, I can see coaching it now with the Migos. Welcome to Atlanta State.
Oh Oh yeah, it's New Atlanta, baby. We're rolling.
This is the new Atlanta.
That's right.
Look, and Coach knew the song I was talking about too. This is the new Atlanta. Oh man, Coach, as always, love, man. I appreciate you so much.
You too.
I look forward to this year. Look forward to being able to talk the journey through with you this year as your first year as the offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach for Georgia State University. Look forward to building. Look forward to coverage. Just look forward to success. Good luck along the journey. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you for taking the time out of your day to
both.
talk to us. Yeah, it was nice meeting
Awesome.
you.
You guys are awesome as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great one.
For those
right.
watching, we thank you very much for taking your time to join us. I definitely forgot to mention this in the beginning. Shout out to Staples and Smartwater, sponsors for Pitt Sports Zone, Pitt's on Push Sports Talk Radio. Wouldn't be able to do it without you. Back to school communities coming up. This year we're going to Philadelphia in August. Tap in. More information coming out for that soon. Again, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.